The Trading Bell, brought to you by MasterCard.
Welcome to the Trading Bell Show. I'll be speaking to Mark Elliott, the Division President, MasterCard Sub-Saharan Africa. He's going to elaborate to us what the mandate is in enabling the ecosystem. But first, let's take a look at his profile, then get into the conversation.
Mark Elliott is the Division President, Sub-Saharan Africa at MasterCard, leading the team that is expanding payments, extending services and embracing new networks across the region. He's responsible for the overall performance, strategic direction and brand development of the division, which comprises of three clusters, namely Southern Africa, East Africa and West Africa. Mark thrives on identifying new strategies and partnerships to scale the latest technologies in payment, driving financial inclusion and enabling SMEs to grow, which is a passion point for both himself and MasterCard as a business. Mark joined MasterCard Dubai in 2011 as Global Products and Solutions Lead for Middle East and Africa region before moving to South Africa to take up country management responsibilities. Prior to MasterCard, he worked at Barclays Group, London. He started his career as a chartered accountant at Arthur Andersen, London, before moving to PwC and ING Baring, Hong Kong, with a focus on financial institutions, M&A. Mark Elliott, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. And one of the curious things that people would probably want to know, especially people who want to interact with you for the first time, is they have probably interacted with the logo quite some number of times. Maybe it's in their cards and the likes. But it's important to understand you leading here in Sub-Saharan Africa. What are you doing here as your mandate in Africa?
So our mandate is to really drive the strategy of MasterCard across Sub-Saharan Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that in all of our countries, I guess we have a mandate and also a social responsibility to provide digital access to MasterCard financial tools, which we also make available to our customers. And we work on a B2B basis and also on a B2B2C basis.
Okay. When we talk about Sub-Saharan Africa, what are we talking about in terms of range?
So Sub-Saharan Africa, in our definition, is about 30 countries. We have a Francophone cluster, which is separate.
Okay.
And we just keep it separate because of the customer servicing, etc., languages.
All right.
So yes, 30 countries.
Okay. Let's talk about the current state of the financial ecosystem in Kenya and even in the region that you are mandated to look over. What would you say is the current state of the financial ecosystem?
Wow. So I think the financial ecosystem, geopolitically, your listeners and readers can know more about the geopolitical situation globally than we do. And that's well documented. I think what's important for us at MasterCard in terms of payments is that it remains that there's still a lot of cash out there. Across Africa, it's still about 99% cash. So as a strategy, what we're trying to do is to displace that cash.
Yeah.
And the way we do that is that we identify big cash pools, and then we think about what are the problems that lie underneath those cash pools, and how can we help work with partners to electronify those cash pools and bring through new solutions to our customers. And I'd say that in Africa, it's plentiful in terms of opportunity, and in East Africa, we've got our eye on a bunch of different things, and that's why it's important to work with government, with telco, and with fintech.
Okay. Let's talk about, in the same ecosystem, challenges and opportunities that you see. What is this that you're still really calling off as your headwinds when it comes to implementation and persons having access to the services that you're offering?
Coming back to what I was saying before, I think what we're always trying to do is we're trying to focus in on the customer experience with our partners.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we're trying to give our customers in that experience simple, secure experiences which continue to be more and more innovative and roll with new technologies. And I'd say that, personally in your personal life, there are some experiences which are quite clunky, and there are other things which you wish you could do, but you can't. And so our job is to work with our partners to figure out how to help in that space. And we've got lots of examples if you're interested.
Okay. I'm actually interested in that, by the way. So, in fact, I wanted to ask you to share some insights into MasterCard's contribution and initiatives that have played that significant role in the development of Kenya's economy and financial ecosystem. And if you have an example there, throw it in.
Sure. So I think if we think about MasterCard's focus in East Africa and more broadly, as I said, it's about including a billion consumers into the financial ecosystem in short order, but with a specific focus on SME and also women.
Yeah.
And so, when I think about how we then have established ourselves in East Africa, it's really about looking at where we can lean in and work with some of those constituents. So,
yeah,
let's take the SME for example.
Yeah.
So the SME would like to build their business. They'd like to have an opportunity maybe to avail credit at some point in the future. But at the moment, they're just accepting cash. So what we need to do is we need to identify low-cost acceptance solutions, which we can make available, which are attractively priced and going to be easy to use, a good customer experience. And the way in which we put those in place is we think about whether there's policy, whether the government's going to allow those kind of low-cost solutions to work or not.
Yeah.
And so in Kenya, what we've done recently is we've launched QR codes, and we've done that really in collaboration with the government. And what that's enabled us to do is then to provide the SME with an ability to accept electronic payments in a simple and easy manner that's actually secure. So that's a great way in which we kind of provide a more inclusive acceptance and uplift the SME. Now, the beauty of that is that once an SME starts to have more transactional data, that then allows a bank to see that data and to lend against it. So if you think about it, there's a starting point over here of working with government.
Yes.
Then there's the actual proof point of enabling a low-cost acceptance.
Yeah.
But downstream, what you're doing is you're enabling credit and the growth of that business.
Okay. Lovely there. And let's talk about partnerships, because I believe you cannot do this by yourself.
Yeah.
Are you partnering with local banks to enable you access these particular customers we're talking about?
Yeah, of course. So we work with banks, fintechs, etc. So in the banking space here in Kenya, we've got excellent relationships with Equity Bank, with DTB, with KCB, etc. And really what we're trying to do there is we're trying to understand what their strategies are and where they're trying to provide improved experiences. Sometimes that's in the e-commerce experience where customers want to spend more time with subscription services and the like. But, what we also have to think about is consumers who potentially are looking for alternative credit methods, embedded finance, as you probably know. And so there where we're working with fintechs like Lipa Later. Lipa Later's buy now, pay later.
Right. Yeah.
And so working with fintechs like that, what we can do is we can provide embedded finance type options alongside installments and other options to the consumers.
Lovely. Let's talk about your vision for creating a sustainable digital economy in Kenya. What are you looking at in your offering?
So in my vision at the moment, quite frankly, is that I want to build out acceptance. So places where people can accept MasterCard. I think we've got a strong roadmap now to increase our acceptance by up to 15 times over the next couple of years. And what that will do is it means that there'll be more places to pay with your MasterCard.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely critical if we're going to provide better experiences for people, holding form factor with our brand. I think there's also an amazing opportunity to build out e-commerce so that it's more available and accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
And also I think we need to give people more options to pay, right? So it is about credit card, but MasterCard is also very involved in other form factors, but also other flows. So, we're also looking at crypto. We look at business to business payments. We have a very strong capability in the remittances space. And so, we can talk about any of those, but, we do that either from a solution perspective, i.e. the platform or the business, but also from the services perspective. So we have an amazing array of services, which again, back to the experience, are about ensuring that fraud doesn't happen. And ultimately banks are able to make real-time decisions so that they improve their approval rates.
Wow. Let's talk about also any specific ongoing projects you have, especially here in Kenya. I know you have quite an array of countries that you have to, but here in Kenya, do you have any projects currently and you're undertaking to support this particular sustainable and digital economy?
Look, I mean, just further afield from what we've just discussed around QR code, what we're also doing is working with government in places like digitizing national parks. So there's a huge opportunity to all the tourists that come in here and have a good time. We need to kind of figure out a way that we can actually electronify the park so it's easier to collect the various payments that they need to make. So I think that's a great example. We're also working with the ICT ministry to understand projects which we can work on with them in the e-government space. And then I spoke earlier about QR code and the opportunity to take the standard which the government has put through and really pull that into society and enable SMEs to grow their businesses.
I know I pointed out on partnerships right here locally with banks, but I'm curious to ask, do you have any other partnerships or collaborations that you're working with to advance the financial services tech in the region?
Yeah, I mean, look, we obviously work with telcos as well. So we've got a blooming partnership with Airtel and also MTN, where we're availing virtual cards. So virtual card, if you think about it, you hold a mobile money wallet, but maybe you can't make the type of e-commerce payments that you want to make. So by availing a virtual card, that allows you to have a funding source, which then allows you to make the e-commerce payments. So that's a great example in the telco space. With fintechs, it's quite broad. So we're working with people like Elliott. We're working with some of the remittance companies. We're working with some of the trade finance companies as well. So it's really about trying to understand where are people trying to move cash, and maybe there's a quicker or better way to do it. I mean, in the remittance space, if you think about it, sending money is still expensive. And sometimes you're not always sure about how much is going to turn up on the other side. And so with our transfer solutions capability, we can actually ensure that your payments will arrive the following day. It'll be the amount you thought it was going to be. And we're plugged into cash out, mobile money, card, etc. So we can do that across corridors around the world. So these types of capabilities ensure that some of the higher costs, which sometimes in Africa could be as high as 8 to 10%, are coming down more to around 4 to 5% in terms of the cost of the transaction as well. So it's not just about efficiency, but it's also about cost reduction.
As we come to a close of this conversation, I'm curious to ask you two things about the security of people's money, because money is quite something close to people's hearts. What is this that you're looking at? Because I see, even we use the word hackers or people who are constantly they're getting innovative by the day, and we're seeing great challenges coming up, not just to the financial ecosystem, but even in other fields, government's data and the likes. I'm sure you have your way of looking at it, and I'm wondering, what do we do? What can you assure people who are on the board?
I think that there are obviously lots of examples. It's been a great period of innovation around the transaction, both before, during, and after the transaction, and we've really worked on cybersecurity solutions. But what I would say, which is very relevant in the world today and very relatable, is that when you go to make a payment in many countries around the world, you now don't, put your card into the terminal. You tap. But the next click of that, which is Apple Pay, is where you tap your phone on the terminal, which is a really sweet experience.
You're right.
Because, the checkout is literally a tap of the phone. Now, the way that happens is through what's called tokenization, where your credentials, which are provisioned into your phone, are encrypted and then de-encrypted onto the terminal. And so those tokenization services and standards have been worked on by the likes of MasterCard, so that your credentials remain safe in that moment of truth when you're trying to buy something. Right? So tokenization, I think, is a great example of where we can grow payments, especially around some of those lower ticket sizes where you used to take out a small amount of cash just to make a payment. It's a great experience. And so that comes back to what I was saying earlier. Ultimately, customers gravitate towards a great experience. I was with somebody last night who was making a telco transaction. It was clunky.
Yeah.
It was clunky. There were a series of different steps. And I was thinking, but why can't we just tap with our phone? That's a much easier experience. It's like this. So I think there's something about that. But at the same time, what we're doing in the back end is we're making sure that that's a secure payment with no risk.
All right. The stability of the region definitely is something of concern to you, since you are right at the center to ensure that you're enabling, the ecosystem work for you. And we have been seeing a few things here and there happening. I'm curious to ask you as well, are you concerned, and how is this going by on your end?
Look, I mean, I think the world is an interesting place, especially at the moment, and there's always a lot going on. I think it's fair to say that as MasterCard, we have a responsibility to ensure that we provide payments, and we're also there to work with government when we need to think differently about how to turn up. And so during COVID, we had a lot of projects about thinking with government, how can we disperse monies in different ways?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons at the moment why governments are thinking about central bank digital currency.
Yeah.
Because they're saying, well, is there an eventuality where I need to disperse a digital currency? And rightly or wrongly, that conversation will continue. And I can tell you, most governments in Africa are thinking that through at the moment. What is MasterCard's role? Well, MasterCard, if you think about it, has run a card network and provided the rules in that network for years. So we can help work through with those governments how to manage the rules in that ecosystem. And we've also got some proof points. We actually launched the first digital currency globally in the Bahamas with the Sand coin. And so we are advising governments on things like digital currencies. We've also bought a company called CipherTrace. And what CipherTrace does is it allows banks to understand the origin of crypto. So as the crypto makes its way through the ecosystem, is it something that they can touch? Is it something they can use? Because you'll find if you look around East Africa, a lot of governments have put a pause on crypto.
Yeah.
And so that's okay. We need to regulate. We possibly need to think about how to manage crypto better. But we also need to help our banks to think through how they're going to manage the risk associated with some of the fraud concerns around crypto. So we definitely think that crypto's got, as a flow, has got some utility, and there will be use cases. But ultimately what MasterCard needs to do is to help government and banks to work that flow through.
Right. And finally, what's your future outlook? And I would like you to put in something about innovation, because I keep seeing lots of innovation coming up in this financial sector. I don't know what you're seeing as your future outlook.
I think the future outlook is one where we're going to have a consumer who simply just wants to make payments in lots of different directions and should do it without too much friction. So friction sometimes is good.
Yeah.
But ultimately that customer experience, if I want to send money to my grandma in Thailand, or I want to send, I wanted to send some money to you right now.
Yeah.
Because you went halves with me on lunch. I should be able to do that in the moment.
Yeah.
I can't do that right now.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
I can't just pick up my phone and do that. And so I think there's a future where I can do that. And if I don't have the money, maybe I've got embedded finance options to help do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely where we need to work with our partners to provide that experience to the likes of you and me, so we can help each other out.
Does Kenya got some credit because of the M-Pesa?
You'll be
Absolutely right. Thank you so much for your time, sir. All right, that's Mark Elliott, the Division President, Sub-Saharan Africa, MasterCard, really helping us understand what they are doing here, and of course, very optimistic of the future, and really helping many, not only businesses, but even persons have access and easy flow of finance. Thank you so much for your time. I'll leave you now with the markets.